May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Holy One, my rock and my redeemer. Please be seated. Many years ago, when my children were young, we went to a very fancy Halloween party. The guests wore elaborate costumes, and one woman came as a tornado from The Wizard of Oz. She wrapped herself in a cloud of metal fence wire, and she attached characters from Oz to the wire. Dolls represented Dorothy, the Wicked Witch, and Toto, and they all appeared to be caught in the thrashing winds of the twister. And then the woman whirled around in a circle, cackling like the Wicked Witch of the West. And my children screamed in horror as the woman in the windstorm circled and gyrated across the lawn. In today's reading from the book of Job, a divine voice speaks to Job from the windstorm. And Job also must have been terrified to the roots of his being. Job is a once wealthy man determined to regain control of the world around him. He's scared because his many belongings have been destroyed. Bereft of his property, Job questions his self-identity and his relationship with the divine. And then suddenly, here God is, talking to him from a whirlwind. And the question arises, will God mete out justice and restore Job's status? And the answer is no, at least in this passage. Job remains stripped of rank and status. He is a man only as himself. Job is just as he is. And yet Job wants to control God. He so wants to control everything in his life that he even wants to control God. Job has been pleading for an audience with the divine ever since the day Yahweh and Satan began arguing like men over crowds in a dark room, debating Job's loyalty. Job worships you, Satan has argued, and is loyal because you take care of him. You have hedged him in with comfort and wealth, but take away the rewards of children and cattle and see whether he continues to honor you. Satan taunts Yahweh. Okay, Yahweh says, accepting the dare, go at him. Go see what you can do to Job. And Job and his equally successful friends believe that their standing in the world has everything to do with their righteousness before the divine. They believe that they deserve everything that they have achieved in life. They think that because they have honored God in thought and action, that in return God has blessed them with prosperity. We know a few people like that, I think. And now suddenly all Job has turns to dust, and he sits in an ash heap, wishing he'd never, ever been born. And this makes Job very angry. It makes him angry with the divine. And so he pulls himself together, and he decides to initiate a lawsuit against the divine, swearing that he did not commit a crime that would warrant the extreme afflictions that he has suffered. And the thing is that according to ancient jurisprudence, when bound by an oath, one party can compel the other to testify and present evidence supporting that party's position. And Job's tactics work up to a point, and the divine appears in a whirlwind. And it is at this very moment in which Job comes face to face with the Holy One that he is lost. It is at this moment that God gives him a new understanding. Think of the other people in the Bible who were recorded as meeting God straight on. Moses at the burning bush and later at the top of the mountain. Jacob, who wrestled with an angel and called the place holy. And of course, Abraham. In these meetings, humans are electrified by exposure to the power of God. And all the places where they meet become honored as sacred points of transformation. For Job, the meeting with the divine teaches him and us a lesson in hubris, pride, and true wisdom. Job has made a false equivalency between his enormous wealth and God's love and approval. He has dared to sue God to win back what he thinks is rightfully his. And God puts Job in his puny human place. Gird up your loins, he says, and tell me what you understand of the foundations of the earth. I am the one who shut in the sea when it burst from the womb. The deity tells Job, I prescribe the bounds for the chaos of the sea and the darkness. And where were you? We know, as Job knows, that Job was not there at the beginning of time. Job comes to the deity with a demand for justice. God answers him with galvanizing facts of mystery and omnipotence. God's meaning and purpose and identity cannot be adjudicated in a law court. God exists in the mystery of the universe. God does bring order, but it is a sacred containment that we can only see darkly now. It is an order whose breadth and scope are deeper and wider than our minds can comprehend. In today's gospel reading, Jesus provides a different picture that illuminates the picture of Job and the deity. At the start of Job's story, his 10,000 goats and sheep, his thousands of camels, acres of land, and many children provide him, he thinks, with identity and standing before God. Jesus shows us a different way. He enters the boat, according to the gospel, just as he is. Listen to that phrase. Just as he is, just as you are. He is not attached to his belongings and status like Job. He is centered in communion with the divine. In fact, he is so entirely prepared to cross the waters of the Sea of Galilee. He is so calm and willing to trust himself to the divine that he falls asleep on a cushion in the stern of the boat. And then the boat is caught in a storm, and like Job, the disciples are desperate for reassurance and a return to order. Teacher, they say, do you not care that we are perishing? And so Jesus calms the water and the wind, which is dramatic to be sure. But then, in what we now like to call a teachable moment, he turns to his panicked disciples to urge them toward faith. He wants to transform them from people living in appearances like Job to recognizing the mystery of God and the inwardness of faith. And how might we enter the boat and pass through the windstorm and recognize that we also can live just as we are? It would mean recognizing that our degree of material success, however comforting or discomforting we find it, is not a mark of God's special favor or disfavor. Similarly, illnesses are not punishments for not loving and serving God well enough. Does not a loving God want all of us to do well and to be well? So, when you or I next talk to someone rising up from prejudice or poverty or recovering from cancer, God invites us to see them and welcome them just as they are, to see them in their simplicity, like Jesus, stripped to their essence, which is the light of God that lives in them. Our good works do not earn us God's love and privilege. God already loves us. Our good works and our faithfulness change us and connect us to community and to God. The ways in which we manifest our love for others, whether say through volunteering at Charlie's Place or joining our company's diversity and inclusion board, or some of the thousands of other ways that we can do that, are both the fruit of faith and the path toward greater faith. God calls us to and walks with us in those actions. So recalling the story of the Wizard of Oz, with which I started, Dorothy, after sampling the wonders of Emerald City, wants nothing more than to return to her home and Auntie M on a simple farm in Kansas. She realizes that these are more central to who she is than are the streets lined with gold. So consider, what is the Kansas of your heart? Living just as we are means avoiding the distractions of the world to concentrate on what is of ultimate importance. It means opening ourselves to God's mystery and then following through with good works. Each of us was made in the image of God. Should we then not come, each of us, just as we are? Amen.